First Lady and the work she's done for me. Mr. President, since the moment that we asked the American people to step up, to take efforts to slow the spread, and we, in that 15 days that would become 45 days, we encouraged people to refrain from attending school, if possible, to engage in school from home whenever it was possible. There were two categories of heroes that emerged. One was the parents around America who stepped up as never before. And those that are looking on, those that are represented here should know. Your president, the first family, your vice president, and our second family are grateful for the families of this country and everything you've done to be the teachers for your children, to create the structure at home where they could continue to learn even in a challenging time. I also want to say how grateful we are to the teachers, Mr. President, and I'm actually sitting next to one who I've been married to for 35 years. As you know, she actually teaches in a local school in the Washington area a few days a week, and I watched her go in and pack up crates of art materials that children could come by and pick up and take home to continue their learning. And so I'd like to invite everybody to show your appreciation for the parents and all the great teachers who have done the work of continuing to educate our children throughout this pandemic. It's truly been inspiring. And, Mr. President, the American people deserve to know that while we are seeing rising cases across the Sun Belt, at your direction, we're ensuring that states have the resources, the support, the supplies, and personnel that are actually arriving as we speak in states like Texas and Florida and elsewhere to relieve healthcare workers. And to your point, I hope the American people appreciate the point that you made yesterday on the national stage and did so again today, that because of what our healthcare workers have done, because of the innovation and the medicines that we've been able to make available, literally we have seen fatalities decline by 90% from some of the worst moments of this pandemic. And we're going to continue to work each and every day to continue to keep those losses low and steady. We're going to save lives as we reopen our country. Today, Mr. President, as you know, we spoke to the nation's governor on the topic of this summit. We reflected on the fact as now 47 governors and the governors of 2 territories have announced plans to reopen schools across America, that it's important to do so for a variety of reasons. The First Lady just spoke of this. We ought to well be concerned about children falling behind academically, and there's no substitute for in-classroom learning, for in-person learning, and that's been much discussed at the summit today. But as the American Academy of Pediatrics, so well represented here today, recently reflected, there are social costs, emotional costs, and even physical costs to our children across this country that we spoke of the governors today. It's important that we reopen our schools as you've directed for the academic and the intellectual development of our children, but it's also vitally important that we remember, as Dr. McCants-Katz told the governors today, that 7 million American children suffer from either mental illness or emotional disturbance, and they principally receive the care from health and mental services at their school. And so making sure that we're meeting the mental and emotional needs of our children, as well as making advances academically, is what brings us here today. The last thing I'll say to all those gathered here, Mr. President, is from early on, you have directed our task force and the CDC to equip families and schools and states with the resources to operate. It was as early as March 12th that CDC issued its first guidance for strategies for school and child care services. We issued decision trees in the middle of May, and just last week, I'm pleased to report the CDC published new guidance for K-12 schools and higher education regarding the type of testing that is appropriate and other strategies. Mr. President, we can bring our schools back. And next week, the CDC is going to issue 5 new documents, how to prepare communities to return safely, decision-making tools for parents and caregivers, symptom screening, cloth face coverings in school settings, guidance, and the rest. We're going to continue to flow these resources and this guidance, but as Dr. Redfield told all the nation's governors today, and I want to acknowledge Governor Parsons' leadership and his presence here today. We're truly grateful. Is that what you've instructed our task force to do and the CDC to do in this moment is to say to states around the country and to local communities, we're here to help. The CDC has issued guidance, but that guidance is meant to supplement and not replace state, local, territorial, or tribal guidance. In a word, Mr. President, you've made it clear to us, we don't want to be the reason any school doesn't reopen. And so our word to the parents that are looking on, to teachers that are looking on, administrators, leaders in your community, is that we are ready to work with the leaders in your school system and in your state to find a safe and responsible way to reopen your schools. That's our commitment. Mr. President, we're continuing to move out on that, on the belief that to open up America again, we've got to open up America's schools. And the American people are taking important steps every day, including this summit today, to do just that. And I'm truly grateful for all of those represented here for being a part of this important work. With that, I'd be happy to recognize Mrs. Pence for a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mike, and Melania. I had the privilege of addressing this group earlier today.
We will make America great again.